see you guys in the dark.
I always sleep with one eye open, but I haven't used a sleeping aid to this day because of what happened that night. For some context, I used to live alone with my mom when I was a teenager, and she was on some pretty powerful sleeping meds at the time. I guess it runs in the family because I was also a deep insomniac, sometimes missing sleep for days at a time. So I turned towards a slightly more natural option than my mom, a blend of supplements including valerian, along with some other stuff that seemed to help. By bedtime, I went back to my room. I had divided the room in a way that I had to go around a shelving unit to get to my bed. It left the layout of my room looking like a U shape, where one end of the U was the door and the other was my bed. I took my supplements, and as they kicked in, I slowly faded into sleep. I don't exactly know how much time passed, but I woke up in a daze, still well sedated. I was nudged from my slumber because I heard a muddled voice in my room, but I was still half awake, and I couldn't process the words being said. I managed to open my eyes, and though my vision was still blurry, I could see there was a tall man facing me, standing on the other side of the shelving unit where the door was. A tall man, I thought to myself, still in a daze. Then my brain kicked into overdrive. I lived alone with my mom. The only other man here was me. Adrenaline finally rushed through me, waking me up for good, and I sprang up. I feel I must preface what happens next with the fact that I was a bit of a wild kid at the time and was really into weapons and knives. And next to my bed was my trusty machete. For people in the US, guns are kind of hard to come by in Canada unless you're a hunter slash security with the proper license. But people here feel generally safe enough to omit having any kinds of weapons in their house at all. So let's just say that being a bit of a maniac, for French Canadian standards, LMAO, paid off that day. I jumped off the bed and grabbed my machete, and as soon as he saw me reach for it, he did a quick 180 and bolted towards the exit. I ran around the shelving unit looking like a half-naked teenage Jason Voorhees. By the time I had reached the outside of my bedroom, he had already run out of the apartment. The first thing I noticed was that he had kicked the front door completely off its hinges to get in. I didn't hear anything like that, so I guess the meds were working. I was about to pursue him, but my mom finally entered my mind. Her room was right next to the entrance. Her door was closed, so I ran into her room only to find her fast asleep. Relief washed over me, and I woke her up as I dialed 911. The police came and were as useful as you'd imagine. If they don't catch you mid-murder, or at the very least with the intruder in the house, there isn't much they could do. I asked them what I'm supposed to do for the rest of the night without a front door in the middle of the city, and they assured me I probably scared the guy enough for him not to come back. After they left, I told my mom to go back to sleep, and I would stand guard for the night. I sat on the couch with the machete next to me and stayed awake until the sun came up. But as I sat there at night and thought about the whole ordeal, some creepy details stood out to me. The intruder had left every door in the house closed except for the one to my bedroom. He essentially kicked the front door in and went straight to my bedroom. I also wondered, what was he saying to me before I finally got my senses back? Was this just someone drugged out of their mind? Or maybe someone who used to live here looking for someone else only to find me? Or was all this meant for me? Worst yet, if that was the case, what would have happened if I weren't armed at that moment? So let's just say that putting a weapon next to my bed has become a new tradition whenever I move somewhere new. And though my sleep has gotten much better, it's not very hard to wake me up. I have a lot of crazy stories from my travels, including making friends with a cannibal in India, fighting off a pack of wolves in a screaming match, almost getting murdered by angry monkeys and apes on 3 different occasions, close encounters with a horde of hand-sized spiders, and coming face to face with a wasp nest 3 times my size, etc. But I got to say, man is still the scariest of all creatures. This story happened 3 years ago, around the time that COVID started, so it was a while back, but still worthy of a post. It was early 2020, and I had just gotten a new job in a small town near my area. While looking for a place to live, my sister offered to rent her house to me. She had bought the house 2 years prior, but she and her husband didn't really take to it, and their commute to work was long, so they moved out, and the house was uninhabited. Luckily for me, it was actually pretty close to my workplace, around a 40-minute drive, and my sister pretty much rented it for free to me. I just paid for the water and electricity and looked after the house. I was living there for a solid 2 or 3 months, and had already gotten used to it. One night after coming back from work and parking my car. As I walked towards my door, I noticed something odd. There was a cigarette butt on the curb to my house. I leaned down and picked it up, thinking that it might have been mine since I'm a smoker. But after looking at the brand name, I realized that it wasn't mine and threw it away. I didn't think much of it and just shrugged it off as some asshole throwing it at my curb. I went on with my night, and nothing unusual happened. 2 days later, I was once again walking to my house when I spotted a few more cigarette butts, this time near my porch. Needless to say, I was pissed off and thought that someone sat on my porch and smoked, but since I didn't know who it was, there was nothing I could do about it. I noticed that they were put out pretty recently, so whoever it was probably walked off as I was approaching. That night, I was watching a movie on my laptop, and it was pretty late, past 1 a.m. So I was surprised when I heard a car passing by. It's a suburban neighborhood, and it was COVID, so people rarely ventured out at night, but I didn't think much of it. Around half an hour later, I was surprised when I heard chattering nearby. I listened intently, but I couldn't hear what they were talking about, as their voice seemed almost muffled and quiet. By this point, I was getting a bit unnerved, so I stopped the movie and quietly got off my sofa and walked to the front door to make sure that it was locked. As I was approaching the door, I froze mid-step as I heard the two approaching my porch and reducing their talking to a whisper. I realized right away that whoever this was wanted to break in. I leaned against my front door and waited, expecting a loud bang against the door or the doorknob being shaken, but it was oddly quiet. I decided to walk over to my window to see if they had walked away or changed their mind. My windows have bars from the inside out that you have to unlock so that you could move the curtains or look out the window comfortably. I slowly unlocked the bar mechanism and lifted it up. I moved the curtains and was taken aback. Leaning up against my window was a man. He was as startled as I was because he basically stuttered over his own steps. As he jumped back, he tightened his hoodie to cover his face, so all I could really see was his big blue eyes looking at me. His friend realized what was going on and right away started to kick the door in. He kicked it a solid 4 or 5 times, but the door wouldn't budge. All the while, I was staring at them, frozen in fear and trying to comprehend the situation. I snapped out of it and slammed the bars over my window, locking them and running upstairs to the storage room, where I pushed a table up to the door and called the cops. As I listened and expected the two to come inside any minute, I heard a loud crash and the bars from the windows being shaken aggressively. When they realized that they couldn't get in, one of them let out a long, angry scream that probably woke up half the neighborhood. By the time the cops came, they were long gone. The police couldn't find out who it was, but were more active in the neighborhood in the following weeks. Regardless, I wasn't too keen on staying there, so shortly after I moved out, my sister sold the house a few months later, and as far as I know, nothing similar ever happened since. I honestly don't know what they wanted or why they were so determined to get in. There are two pieces of context you need to understand this story. Bear with me. I've had severe insomnia since I was a kid, and growing up, I was consistently awake until the early morning. The second floor of my house at the time was one room. My bed was in a corner, separated from the rest of the room by bookshelves and a wardrobe, but they didn't reach the ceiling, and there was no door, so I could see and hear anything happening on the second floor. The upstairs room had a door to the outside that was connected to a nearby hill by a poorly constructed bridge made of 3 long, unsecured boards. and the door had bells tied to it because when I did sleep, I would sleepwalk. This happened when I was around 11. I lived in a very rural area in the house I described. One night when my parents were asleep, sometime in the early AM, I heard an aggressive rattling from the outside door. Really aggressive rattling and bells ringing. No idea how my parents didn't wake up. From the sound, it was definitely human, not an animal. I don't think they were trying to pick the lock. It sounded like they had the doorknob in their hands and they were just shaking the door as hard as they possibly could, trying to brute force it, I guess. Mind you, they're standing on a few wobbling planks of wood around 10 feet off the ground, which was cement, so kicking the door down wasn't exactly a viable option here. They shook the door for several minutes, then took a pause before trying again. They did this repeatedly. As soon as I'd begin thinking they'd left, the rattling would start again. They couldn't get in because the upstairs door was always locked due to it being unsafe and all, but the downstairs door to the house was always unlocked. We lived a considerable drive from the nearest house, and the road was barely usable anyway, so we just didn't think we needed to lock it. Ironically, all this person had to do was try the front door. It happened a second time several weeks later. The exact same pattern: shake the doorknob, stop, shake again. They still didn't try the front door. After that, they never tried it again. As far as I'm aware, despite me going to bed every night expecting them, which is honestly the best ending one can hope for given the circumstances. Now I live a 9-hour drive from that house, and life has gone on. It does feel kind of weird that I have no idea who did it, and that I could meet them without even realizing. Maybe I already have. As far as scariest moments of my life go, this makes the top 10. It was that paralyzing fear where you can't move or scream. I couldn't alert my parents. I couldn't do anything. If they'd gotten inside, I probably wouldn't even run. To this day, I have nightmares where something bad happens, and I can't scream. My parents still think I'm lying about all this. After talking with my brother, I found out that he was woken up that night and heard it too. His bed was closer to the door, so he could probably hear it better than me. Despite not having many people, the area I'm from has a high murder and disappearance rate. There was a murder the year this happened that took place on the road I lived on. Maybe the guy they booked for that is my mystery culprit. I don't know. So, to the person who tried to break into my childhood home, I sincerely hope I never get the chance to see your face. This all started a couple days ago, around July 5th, where I'd get a random call from FedEx around 10 p.m., where they would ask me for my name and address, which they already knew. I gave it to them thinking it might be a package that was lost and somehow found its way back to my home. Hindsight, I should have known FedEx doesn't deliver past 8 p.m. here in Canada. I thought nothing of it till I got another phone call saying they can't find my unit number and asked me to come out to the roundabout nearby my place. My dad thought it was weird, so he patrolled the area to find these people. My dad did around 4 laps. The first lap, there wasn't anything there, but then I got curious and joined him for the second lap. Yet again, nothing. I went back into my home, and my dad did a third lap around the house. He found a gray SUV in the corner and confronted them. They told my dad they aren't the delivery person, and my dad left to do another confirmation check. As he was doing this last lap, that same SUV wasn't there. The next day, July 6th, around 6 p.m. to 11 p.m., we hear a doorbell ringing, and I went down to check. And it was two individuals around the ages of 20. They knew my name and was calling out for me. I thought it was weird because I've never seen them before. I didn't feel safe, so I didn't pursue them. They kept coming over and over again, so we called the police and talked about what we should do. The cops told me to contact them if this happens again. The next day, July 7th, it was very quiet and nothing weird happened, so we thought the worst has ended and just went on with my day. The next day, July 8th, it was the same quietness, but when the time approached 11 p.m., my security camera spotted an individual with a mask on taking photo/video of my current house. This was the breaking point. We contact the police and inform them about this weird behavior just when you thought it was over. I was casually in the living room around 3 a.m., the same day I heard something outside my balcony. I thought it could be anything and didn't mind it till it made a sound again. I went to the balcony, go see what I was hearing. Then it clicked. I was face to face with the intruder. I started screaming for help, and my family came down to check out the commotion. Thank God I checked the balcony that day. Who knows what else could have happened? Today is July 9th, and I haven't got a wink of sleep in thinking of the terror that I faced. Am I one of the targets of a home invasion? How did they get my name? What do they want from me? Early Sunday morning at around 5 a.m., I woke up to this violent banging and shaking on my door. I live alone on the second floor of an old apartment building downtown in a very small town. I've been taking Benadryl to sleep for a few months, and sometimes I sleep weird. So, for a moment, I thought, did that really just happen? And then I heard whoever it was start doing it again. This time, these super loud bangs like they're charging the door. That's when I realized both my fan and AC unit were off. The power was off. It stopped after the second time, and I heard someone stomp down the stairs, and I laid here processing what just happened. It's dead quiet without the fan, and I heard a guy's voice outside saying, "No, we were just walking." I'm still lying here motionless in fear and try to think of someone to call. A few months ago, my downstairs neighbor got my package by mistake and messaged me on Facebook about it after seeing my name. I've seen her a few times, and I know she has these two absolutely ripped pit bulls, so I message her thinking she won't even see it till she wakes up. Nope, she immediately starts calling me. She says she saw the two guys come out of the building after trying her door, mine, and the person across the hall from me, and then tried to lie and say it wasn't them. She's already called the police at this point, and the intruders are gone. So I go downstairs to meet her, and we find the breaker box door ripped off and all the switches off, which sucks because there's a camera outside, but our landlord said he's trying to back up the footage to see if it caught them. Our other neighbor wakes up. She had no idea it was happening. Finally, the downstairs neighbor got the power turned back on, and the cops showed up within like 20 minutes to get statements. Apparently, the downstairs girl was awake the whole time and heard them trying her door, and her dogs were doing a low growl thing instead of barking. She gave them their descriptions. Cops haven't updated any of us yet. Some of my coworkers said maybe it was the TikTok trend where they kick the door in. Thankfully, my door opens outwards, not inward, if that's the case. But I feel like cutting the power and trying to open all three units seems more like an actual break-in. I've barely slept since it happened, and I'm about to try now.
If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe, like, and hit the bell for notifications on future videos, and become a stalker of the night. And I'll see you next time.